Well, let's go back to our correspondent in Gaza. Tariq Abu Azoum is joining us live from Rafah in the south. So, Tariq, have you heard anything more since we've been able to report that Islamic Jihad has announced that they will be releasing this dual Russian-Israeli citizen on Saturday as part of the release of 3 Israeli captives on Saturday?
Yes, Elizabeth. In fact, we have heard from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad military wing, Al-Quds Brigades, confirming the release of an Israeli captive named Trufanov, Alexander Trufanov, tomorrow as a part of the 6th batch of the Israeli captives who have been scheduled to be released tomorrow on Saturday. This is basically a part of the prolonged planned operation between Palestinian factions. Simply, we need to remind our viewers that the military spokesperson of Qassam Brigades has freezed the release of the Israeli captives just a couple of days ago as a part of the response to the violations made by the Israeli side regarding the implementation of the humanitarian protocol and the level of commitment that has been widely shown to the terms of the agreement. But later on, the movement has adjusted its behavior, saying that they are still committing to the terms of the agreement and the release of the Israeli captives as scheduled. But we did not hear yet from the military wing of Hamas, as we are expecting a very soon release of the names of the Israeli captives within the next few hours. But the location of the releasing those captives are still unknown, and the timing as well possibly will take place tomorrow morning if it's going to be successfully taking place. And we're going to witness the same sort of security preparations will be taking place on the ground tomorrow. But for Palestinians, they believe that this is a very good sign and a positive one regarding the sustainability of the ceasefire agreement. But there is a growing sentiment that Israel might add extra requests and orders following the release of the Israeli captives, or provide any sort of criticism to Palestinian factions regarding the health condition of those expected released captives and the way that they has been receiving treatment in captivity. But based on these initial indications, we can say for sure that this is a very good step that can bring the sustainability of the deal and can bring it back on the track. And the question is, despite all these sorts of commitments that had been shown by Palestinian factions to the terms of the agreement, is Israel going to allow for heavy machinery and mobile houses to enter the Gaza Strip? Till now, we did not see any sign on that, but only humanitarian aid trucks that entered Gaza. So the link between two files here, the captives and the entry of aid, has been quite complex, as Israel all the time tries to obstruct the entry of humanitarian supplies under such security and military justifications. But presumably, there is also more growing anger among Palestinians regarding the lack of commitment by Israel, and many believe that here in Gaza that Israel might not commit to the second phase of negotiations for the second ceasefire agreement, for the second phase of the ceasefire agreement. But Palestinians pray that regional mediators will continue to exert pressure on both parts to push them to reach a very concrete ground regarding the main sticking points that we're witnessing in the second phase of the agreement: the complete withdrawal of the Israeli military from the Gaza Strip and the reconstruction of the vast majority of destroyed areas, alongside with the release of both Palestinian detainees and Israeli captives from Hamas's and other factions' captivity.
And meanwhile, Tariq, a lot of focus, of course, on what will happen on Saturday. And when we have looked at earlier releases, they are very large operations. Many Palestinians in Gaza attend the releases. I know you've been very busy monitoring aid that's coming over the border from Egypt, but are you hearing of any preparations for tomorrow's release?
Well, usually these preparations take place at late hours of today, and we can see it quite obvious within tomorrow's early hours, specifically that these locations could completely be chosen under very strict security measures made by Palestinian factions, including Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. But we need to remind our viewers that the latest release of the Israeli captives in the city of Khan Yunis, especially that Erbil Yehud alongside with another Thai nationals, were in the Palestinian Islamic Jihad's captivity, has been widely lashed out, not by just only locals, but also by Israeli officials regarding the very tense nature of the handover of those captives. But later on, we have seen different disciplined and well-planned handover of the Israeli captives, despite the very large numbers of Palestinians who came to attend these releases. But we can say that Israel is trying to throw more obstacles and to create a more tense environment that's surrounding the current ceasefire agreement, despite many successful handover of the Israeli captives before. But right now, our eyes are going and forward the Israeli reaction regarding the potential release of the Israeli captives, as we are still waiting to see where those captives will be handed over, especially that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad has solely announced the release of the Israeli captives, Alexander. Alongside that, the timing that they will choose in order to release the captive. These all indicators are not still quite clear for Palestinians, but we are still closely monitoring the timing and the location of the potential release of the captives and the atmosphere in which this captive will be handed over to the International Committee of the Red Cross.
And as always, Tariq, you have been following the ups and downs, more often than not downs, of how people in Gaza are feeling, and you have been over the past few days with the uncertainty over whether the ceasefire would continue. Right now, there must be a general sense of relief.
Well, this is the main point that Palestinians keep thinking about, which is the sustainability of the ceasefire. This is due to one clear reason, Elizabeth, which is the destruction and the unprecedented level of humanitarian misery and the humanitarian catastrophe Palestinians have witnessed with historic proportions. They understand that the resumption of fighting, the resumption of attacks will lead to nothing but further destruction and devastation. And from their own perspective, the Palestinians here generally are calling for a comprehensive de-escalation of bombardment and fighting, and they are calling for more diplomatic resolutions and solutions to take place between conflicting parties and under the supervision of regional mediators, including Egypt and Qatar, who have very significant leverage on both sides here in Gaza and in the occupied Palestinian territories. But Elizabeth, Palestinians believe that if Israel will only focus on restoring its captives, later they will start the bombardment and their military ground operations. They believe that the Gaza Strip will witness a very dangerous chapter, not just only bombardment, but potential displacement and the spill of original citizens from their original towns and villages, and could be a part of a practical implementation of Trump's plan to relocate Palestinians in neighboring countries. This is what we have heard from civilians as we have having conversations with them in different areas in the Strip. This is their real nightmare, which is to be relocated in neighboring countries, to be uprooted from their lands where they have spent years of hardships building and working in order to guarantee a better future for their children. And one important thing to note is the Palestinians continue to reject the plans of Trump, and they say that they completely reject any sort of relocation in other countries. They say that right now death is their bittersweet choice over being uprooted from the Gaza Strip. But for many, their main concentration now is that their constant prayers that the ceasefire will sustain and it will bring further stability, especially for the second phase, if it comes to a remarkable, successful agreement between Hamas and Israel.
Tariq, thank you as always. That is Tariq Abu Azoum with all the latest, joining us live from Rafah in southern Gaza.